Frank Sinatra, he's a brat pack. He rolled with everybody. He was so tied in, it's sickening.
One of the tracks that came from the Valentine sessions was a loud, furious punk statement called Nervous in the Alley, which Camp and Harwell were particularly proud of. They thought the song would be perfect for mainstream radio, and they didn't even care that they hadn't got a record deal. The band paid a visit to San Jose alternative rock station KOME, where a friend of theirs worked in the station's marketing department. That friend hooked the band up with one of the station's programming directors, a fellow named Jim Pratt. Before listening to Nervous in the Alley, Pratt called in one of the station's disc jockeys at the time, a young man called Carson Daly, that would later go on to be a popular video jockey on MTV. They got Pratt and Daly to listen to their song, and upon hearing it, the duo from KOME went crazy and immediately added the song to the station's regular rotation list of tracks. This made Smash Mouth the only band on KOME's playlist that was not signed to a major label. This had been the band's goal from the beginning, to make a record and get on the radio. Harwell and the band understood that oftentimes a band being played on the radio is considered uncool by underground music fans that like their local bands to stay hungry and broke. But at the same time, the members of Smash Mouth knew that being broke, though cool, was still being broke, and they were tired of sleeping on couches and scrounging for cash between gigs. Harwell's philosophy was that he would rather have dough, have a career, and have people like their work than be cool and have no money. For some time, from his interactions with various label executives and talent scouts, Harwell had formed the opinion that if a band wasn't able to succeed in the music business, they must be really stupid. Though he realised his conviction made him sound a bit arrogant, he deeply believed that it was the truth, and he knew that he had the brains, business sense, desire, and the drive it would take to make Smash Mouth a rousing success. The band continued playing club dates at small venues in and around San Francisco, San Jose, and Los Angeles. With Nervous in the Alley picking up steam, they began developing a loyal fan following. At the same time, they were able to work on their sound, filing away the rough edges and learning what elements would resonate with the audience and what parts would not. Since Nervous in the Alley had fared so surprisingly well on KOME, the station asked Smash Mouth to play at their huge summer concert at the Shoreline Amphitheatre, which has a capacity of several thousand people. They realised that should they accept, Smash Mouth would be sharing a bill with chart-busting bands such as No Doubt, Beck and 311. Though all of Smash Mouth's experience had come from playing in clubs that were minuscule in comparison to this venue, the lucky opportunity was just too good to pass up, because it is not often that a local group gets the chance to share a bill with bands that were firmly ingrained in the blood of the international music mainstream. The sound that Smash Mouth was developing was nearly impossible to categorise at the time. Harwell liked hip-hop, country and Elvis, while Delisle was into punk rock and popular music structures, like the songwriting styles of John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Coleman was an ex-speed metal freak who had turned into a Ramones and Dead Kennedys groupie, and then he later got into the reggae-tinged ska brew of Sublime. And then there was Camp, who liked pretty much everything that he heard. Altogether, Camp described their influences as making a California goulash, combining hip-hop, Latin music, reggae, ska, punk rock, pop and surf. After their quick opening set at the KOME summer concert, the station was pleased with the band's willingness to perform and their agreeability while working out the logistics of the show, as well as with the crowd's overwhelmingly positive reaction to Smash Mouth at the concert itself. The station was so pleased, in fact, that they began playing Smash Mouth's Nervous in the Alley more than ever. After nearly 100 spins of the song, the KOME audience began calling the station regularly to find out where they could purchase copies of the song. The band was surprised by the positive reaction, and they had no plan in place in case of such a windfall of publicity. Since it was not available anywhere, the station had to pull the song from the air.
Steve and I were both in hip-hop bands before this. And so it's like those influences never really surfaced in Smash Mouth.
This experience served as a learning point from which Smash Mouth took off. Knowing not only that their music would be accepted by commercial radio and their fans, but that there was also a commercial demand for their music, the band got back together with producer Eric Valentine. Together, they hatched a plan. They would go into Valentine's studio in Redwood City, located in Northern California, and record enough material for a full album. If, during the process of recording, a major record label showed interest, and if the price was right, the band would sign a recording contract. If none of the labels were interested, they would take a chance and release it themselves. But since they had no label funding their initial efforts, the band was going to have to record on a shoestring budget. They had a manager at the time, and they borrowed enough money from him to rent Valentine's studio and pay whatever costs were incurred. Another plan the band devised to raise money was through a series of what they call scams. Though Harwell has admitted that he does not smoke marijuana, the band would tramp through people's backyards around the San Jose area where the marijuana plant was being illegally grown and harvested. They would surreptitiously swipe the plants and then sell them to help fund their studio time. On another occasion, they stole a local drug dealer's bicycle and were able to sell it to make some more extra cash. Almost immediately after starting to record their first album, they began getting feelers from several record labels who were all extremely interested in signing the band, especially following the out-and-out success of Nervous in the Alley. After meeting with several companies, one of which showed particular interest, Harwell received a page from his lawyer telling him to contact the offices of Los Angeles radio station K-Rock immediately. Upon calling, Harwell discovered that a man named Tom Whalley, the powerful president of Interscope Records, was there in the studio, and less than 24 hours later they had signed a deal good for 2 albums, with an option for even more depending on the success of the first 2. Interscope Records had been having success distributing Death Row Records, which included popular artists like Dr. Dre and his Death Row Records family, and also electronic artists such as Trent Reznor's 9 Inch Nails. But it was felt Smash Mouth, with their sunshine-influenced pop sensibilities, could bring a retro air to Interscope's pantheon of artists. The band no doubt felt that since Interscope didn't have any other bands with a sound similar to theirs, they could flourish with the label's considerable marketing and promotional muscle behind them. Plus, the band knew that their music was popular with the public in their local area, so it only made sense to them that they could also have a worldwide audience. Going into the studio with Valentine, the band took with them a fistful of songs that were written primarily by Camp. They had developed a process in writing that was as unique as their sun-kissed sound. Camp would sit and jam on an acoustic guitar, playing this and that until he hit upon a string of notes or chords that stood out to his musically bombarded ear. From there, he would add lyrics and try to come up with a suitable melody. Once he had moulded the song to a point where he felt comfortable with it, he would take the song to Harwell, Delisle and Coleman. They would all listen to it, and then add parts that they felt the song needed, and that would better reflect the band's musical and artistic identity as a whole. At the same time, Harwell and Camp were basically living vicariously through each other's talents. Since Camp was notoriously shy on stage, but a brilliant songwriter in private, while Harwell was loud and gregarious on stage, they were each able to utilise each other's characteristics. While writing songs, Camp would keep Harwell's oversized stage persona in mind and try to invent material that would allow him room to flex his charm and flamboyance. Correspondingly, Camp was able to manipulate his own feelings and thoughts into cognizant phrases in a way that Harwell would have had trouble expressing on his own. Once they began recording, they hit a hot streak where their creativity was at an all-time high. They recorded the majority of the songs live in the studio, rather than resorting to the use of overdubbing and other patented studio trickery. This was also more economical, as they were having to pay Valentine hourly rates.